Passion Projects. I'm Pyle, and this is the podcast where we spotlight people from all walks of life who've turned what they love into what they do. Each week, we explore the spark behind the journey, what keeps them going, and how they've built a life fueled by passion. Ah, that smell of morning coffee. Who doesn't love it? I sure as heck got addicted to the smell in college, but veered away for as long as I could until my mid to late 20s. Then it was really on. Listen, there's something to be said about a refreshing and endearing cup of morning coffee. It gets me excited to start my day. And it turned me into thinking about, well, maybe I do want to have a coffee shop of my own one day. Well, today's guest, Bertha Hurtado, began her career as a forensic anthropologist, using science to uncover human stories. But her path took a bold turn when she decided to pursue her lifelong love of coffee. She's now the founder of On the Run Coffee Bar, Florida's first electronic mobile coffee bar, blending sustainability, community, and incredible brews into every cup. And we had the privilege of being on location with her so we could uncover her story and how she's bringing purpose to every pour. Oh my God, this is the best. Truly awesome. I love my turmeric cardamom golden milk.
Well, this is exactly why I do it, to see those faces of just like, ah, yay, satisfaction.
Yes, so much satisfaction. Well, Bertha, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on our Passion Projects podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank
so
you.
Happy to have you here. I like to begin by asking everyone what brings them joy. What is bringing you joy right now?
Just to see your face. Yeah, I mean, that level of satisfaction is just priceless. You know, I think that if I can bring a little bit of joy into people's lives, whether it's through a cup of coffee or a conversation or golden cardamom latte, that's fantastic. Yes.
And I truly, it means so much. It like opens up my day. I'm so ready to start my day. But I want to take you back to where it all began. What drew you first off to forensic anthropology? I think that's so fascinating.
Wow. So I'm going to reveal my age. I'm turning 45. So that's like going back to when I was in high school. It's a long time ago.
We're only 5 years apart. I get it.
5 years is a long time. My husband says the same thing. I was like, honey, 5 years. You're at the next level. Right? But yeah, it started all in. I'm originally from Peru.
Yes.
So that's where everything started. I went to school in Peru, and it's so interesting because my parents would tell me, you were always so enthralled by watching like surgeries. So back in the 80s, there was like shows that would just demonstrate surgeries of all kinds. And that I would sit down and just watch and be curious. And
the blood didn't gore you at all or anything?
No, it never has. It really has never. And I don't think it has to do, well, it does have to do with being squeamish, right? But no, that never affected me or anything. But I did not want to go into medicine. There was something else. At that point, of course, I had no idea what it was. And it wasn't until in Peru, at least back in the early 90s, they really didn't have any censoring in news. So there was apparently a homicide, and the body was there, and it was this big thing. And the problem, that at least for me, was that there was no And at that point, I had no idea, but it just didn't seem right, the way they were treating the body, the way the families were all over the body, the way just things were handled. It just didn't feel correct. So I started doing a little bit of research, and in Peru, they didn't have anything in terms of studying forensics. It was more you go into medicine, you go into becoming like a pathologist and so on. So that's when I was like, okay, let me see if this is something that I would be interested in. And no. And the more I started reading, because it was more, back in the day, it was AOL and it was dial-up. So,
Yeah.
And in Peru, things were very, very slow. So it was more of the reading process than, going on the internet. At any rate, to make this long story short, condensing it very much, it was, I started learning about the different, areas of expertise when it came to forensics, and anthropology was one of them. Evolutionary biology, or biological anthropology. That really intrigued me, and how, through understanding osteology, you can really develop an understanding of not who the person was, because that goes beyond just looking at bones, but was the person male? Was the person female? Were there any pathologies on the bones that were left behind that can help and identify the person? So all of those things really caught my attention. And so that's kind of like how it began. And then I started writing emails to programs in the United States. And I got a response from one of them in San Francisco. And luckily for me, my dad lives in California. So it was one of those things that, I once I had everything aligned, and I went ahead and wrote to my father and said, Dad, brace yourself, I'm coming. And that's how things started, which was a beautiful process, because I was able to learn so much, and maybe starting over was something that I needed to do in order to solidify the passion that, was so deeply rooted in me at that time. And so here's the interesting part. So all through my academic years, my undergrad years, I love coffee. So, and that goes from my father. My father, I remember him making coffee, and just the smell was, so good.
Yeah.
But anyway, so my life was at coffee shops for hours and hours and hours of just studying, or just, writing, or doing whatever, just relaxing. Yeah. And I remember right around that time is when I met my husband. And
At a coffee shop?
no,
Okay.
we didn't meet at a coffee shop. But, we would go to coffee shops and just relax. And then I remember talking to him. It's like, can you imagine if one day I opened up a coffee shop? And here we are all these years later, right? Yeah, so that's kind of like my path, and how things kind of, solidified into my career.
So would you say, your love for coffee came essentially from your father, in a way?
Maybe, yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
He was very particular with his coffee process and making, and the type of beans that he would use, and very particular. So that kind of, that set the foundation, let's put it that way.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Was there any of that growing up in Peru for you as well? Was there that cultural connection with the coffee there too, or not as much?
At that time, not as much. My grandfather was a heavy coffee drinker, but very, nothing in terms of specialty coffee or really properly brewing coffee. It was more like the instant coffee. I need my coffee, instant coffee, hot water, and let me drink it with some sugar.
Yeah.
And that's okay, but that's, that was at least the culture at that time. Espressos, or I don't recall in my family being so, intensely, at least with my grandfather, but with my father, yeah. or just the way he would process his coffee.
Such a world of a difference from, I guess, how you do it now, for sure.
Yeah, it has evolved, at least in my eyes, and I look at Peru every time I go back to Lima, and I see how it has grown.
Yes.
From specialty coffee, from just having or a basic understanding of what coffee roasting is all about and how to roast coffee properly. And to now, before it was like just coffee is coffee. The way it's roasted. You just grind it and just pour it. And that was pretty much it. Now with the culture, it has grown exponentially. Now you have specialty coffees like everywhere pretty much.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when that idea came, when you're just like, okay, you have this aha moment, like I want to open a coffee shop. How did you go about the process of learning the ropes of the coffee business?
In the beginning or now at this phase?
I would say in the beginning and then evolving to the phase that you're in now.
So I got so excited about the process and, oh my gosh, the coffee shop. And I remember my husband and I were driving. We were driving through, my gosh, I can't remember the name, but it was Rockaway Beach in California. And Rockaway Beach was a beach that my husband would go and surf or bodyboard. And we were driving by and there was this house/delicatessen. And I said to myself, oh my gosh, look at that spot. This is perfect. I can buy my first house. It's like my first coffee shop and everything all in one. And he started laughing. And of course, there was a lot that went through the process, but I'm going to condense it to a point where, I called the real estate agent and we went in, I looked at the numbers and everything was ready to go pretty much. And I said, well, who's going to sponsor a poor undergrad student? Nobody, right? So I went to my dad and I presented this whole thing to him.
Yeah.
And he gave me the respect, of a father to a daughter to listen to what I had to say, to read. And he said, no, I will not. I love you so much. And you need to finish up what you started. And then down the line, you'll figure it out if this is for you. Yeah. And, it was like, but you know what? He's right. He's absolutely right. I had so much going on, in school with lab and this and that. And, even my husband would say it was so difficult to even have a date with you because either you had a test or you were in the lab or you were doing this or you were doing that.
Yeah,
there was always something going on. So, which was a great thing. I was building my life, my career, my path, my journey. So he was absolutely right, my dad. And that's how we left it. But that didn't stop my mind from, exploring once in a while, how would I have my coffee shop? And just think about it for a little bit. So now how did it evolve to the present time? Well, there came a point I ended my career at a police department. So it was very difficult because there were moments where my children were telling me, Mom, we only see you in the morning. And that was heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking.
Yeah, so my shifts were very complicated, although the things that I learned and the things that I produced while at the police department were absolutely amazing. And it's one thing that I thank God every day because those opportunities don't come like that. And the opportunities that I made and the people that I met and the families that were impacted, through the process of working on cold cases, because that's what I ultimately ended up doing. So that was absolutely amazing, but something was giving. Yeah. And I did not, and the stages of children are just for a very short period of time. And I didn't want to miss any of that, as
I understand. We're in it right now where I feel that. I feel
Yeah.
like working from home is great because there has that flexibility, but
Yes.
going to work and working these long hours, it's a strain, right? Like you don't want to miss, like, especially when they're so young. Totally.
Yes.
We get it. Yes.
It's difficult, and you have to have a good and strong support system. If, there's that moment where, you feel like things are just caving in and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to hold this? But then, here comes, your partner, your husband, and your family, your mom, and it's holding you, don't worry, we got this. Just continue what you're doing. We got the rest.
That village, though, must be so helpful at
100%.
in the place that you were at that moment, just to know that there were people around you that were encouraging you, but at the same time saying, we got this.
When things just became a lot more difficult and the kids continued to grow, that's when I sat back one night. I came home like at midnight, and I remember sitting at the office chair and, just really praying and saying, okay, is this the time? Just give me a sign, please. And that's when I just started writing, and I started creating the concept of On the Run Coffee Bar. And how it came about, it was several days of really brainstorming and of being creative. And it's something that I never thought I had. Me creative? No. My sister, yes. Me, no. But, I learned a valuable lesson, never negate the gifts that are given to you, especially through our Father. So it's like, okay, I started building and putting the foundation for On the Run Coffee Bar. And it looked like this. Do I like generators? No. How can I make this like eco-friendly? Because, if you go to a food, and nothing wrong with that, but it's something that's my vision, and something that I really thought it was important. So I would like people to come to the window and not have to deal with noise and not have to deal with fumes. How can I make this happen? So I started researching, and then I met this company, Jewel, which phenomenal company. Love them to pieces. They have been outstanding through the whole process. And I said, so this may work out. Why not? Having a fully electric mobile trailer? Are you kidding me? This is great.
The first of its kind in Florida?
Yes. Although my husband says in the nation, I was very like, I don't know. Well, do your research. I haven't seen anything. So I said, let's be conservative. Let's just stay in Florida. Right. But, it was one of those things that I said, okay, so how am I going to design this? I don't want the box. So I started looking at different places, and I remember seeing this company in LA, and I was already looking into studying about coffee. So I was already reading, learning, educating myself thoroughly in coffee, what it means. Everything from the country, the pH, the soil, the altitude, everything you can possibly imagine. And while still working, right? It was still building the concept. And then so this company that I first saw was in Los Angeles, and I was going to take a training in LA, and I said, oh, this is like perfect. I'll just go meet with the company to see if the design will work with my vision, and then I'll go to my training. Well, things didn't, normally they don't work the way that we wanted sometimes, you know, and it's like, okay, so it didn't work out.
That. Yeah.
And so I went ahead and I started looking for more. And then I saw this company that was in Tennessee, in Nashville, and it's called AeroBuild. Fell in love with the concept. I said, okay, that's why it didn't work out with the other one, because this is the one that I needed. And I spoke to the owner, super friendly. Listen, we had like over an hour meeting because I had all these questions and the vision, and he jokingly, kindly, it was like, we got you. We know exactly what you want now, and then met with the design team. So it was fantastic. It just worked really well. And my husband and I were like, let's take a trip. Let's fly out to Nashville and let's give the down payment. And that's when it became a reality. In the interim, I was also working on the concept of the logo. My father was a material scientist. So there was a lot of physics, a lot of chemistry, a lot of all that fun stuff. I said, how can I incorporate something like that in my logo without it? Because everybody say, well, it doesn't show coffee. It doesn't show coffee bean. It doesn't show a coffee cup. Well, Apple doesn't have a computer. It's an apple.
Yes.
So it really, you create the brand that you want. So I was in that developmental stage of creating the brand for me. And I wanted elements of my family. I wanted elements of life. I wanted elements of just me, of what I love.
And that's what it should be.
Yes, absolutely. So, and that's how I started looking, because they were pressuring me, the people from Aerobuild, it's like, we need your logo, we need this, we need that. I was like, oh my gosh. Luckily for me, two of my best friends, we went to school together in Peru. They get married, okay?
Yeah.
So high school sweethearts, they get married. She is my cousin, my distant cousin, but we consider ourselves like super cousins.
Right.
And he is a top-notch illustrator. And she's a phenomenal artist too. So I'm like, I'm calling them in Peru, like, I need help. I have all of these elements that I want to incorporate in my logo. I don't know how to do it. It's just, I'm so limited right now and I need you guys. So Gianmarco, so graciously, he's like, just give me everything and we'll work with Daniela and we'll figure something out. So I told him exactly what I wanted. So initially, one of the elements was ground. So it's a perpendicular line with 3 lines that go horizontally. So you see it like this, 3 lines. And I wanted that because ground represents everything, and so that straight line, he created the squiggly lines, so the 3 lines. And I said, I'm also very minimalist and I love geometric shapes. And so he brought pretty much all of the elements, which, I mean, a lot of people look at it as a mountain, and a lot of people look at it as the ocean. A lot of people look at it as, the sun, or and it has nothing to do with that, but it has everything to do with it at the same time, as if that makes any sense. But when they sent me the designs, I mean, I took the first look and I said, that's it. Are you sure? You're sure you don't want to take a look? And I said, no, that's it.
When you know, you know.
When you know, you know. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and that's how it started. And then, we flew to Tennessee and it became a reality. And then they started sending us, little bits and pieces of how the progress was going. And then in the interim, I was, continuously educating myself and figuring out how, because it's not just a beautiful thing of learning about coffee, which I can romanticize that all day.
Yes.
But then it's the struggle of, now I'm figuring out that every city has its own laws and regulations. It's like, oh my gosh, it wasn't as easy as, so you have to learn what goes on behind every jurisdiction just to make sure that you're abiding by the rules. You have to get certain permits. Oh my gosh, so during that time, I was educating myself in that regard as well.
Yeah, you went through many challenges and loopholes and everything, right? To get to that.
Yes.
To the 100%. Point where we are now.
Yes.
And getting to have like a spot dedicated in this Emily's Garden is amazing as well.
That was a total blessing. That story was hilarious.
Tell us about it.
So let's go back to Tennessee.
Yes.
So we were all ready to drive to Tennessee to pick up the trailer. And my husband, he travels a lot for work. And he said, honey, I'm not going to be able to be with you and do everything and hitch. You have to learn how to do it all.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, absolutely.
Got this.
got this, no problem. So we get to Tennessee, and I'm learning, and I'm trying to record everything just to make sure that I'm not missing anything. And then my husband gives me the car keys. Like, are you ready? I'm like, oh my gosh, sure. So we drove from Tennessee all the way to Florida with the trailer. Oh yeah, it was.
How long did that take?
On our way to Tennessee, about 12 hours, and then
wow.
back. I mean, we stayed in Georgia. We had to. We took it easy.
Yeah.
At least I had to take it easy because it wasn't.
It was a journey.
It's a journey. We came here, now it was parking, figuring all of that out. And luckily I had the permit so I can start, and it was fantastic. Private events were amazing, getting to meet people. And then, just doing pop-ups in different locations. That was also great because I also got to meet people.
So I want to know, was it hard though to get events, like to schedule or to be out there and to attempt to like go to events, and how to figure that out?
Absolutely.
And, yeah.
I mean, you have to be out there.
Yeah.
So you have to also make phone calls, parks, recreation. And that's kind of like when you start putting your business out there, you become part of a list. And that's how you start, right? And then people start calling you, and you need to have obviously like a website or some sort of social media platform where they can actually see you and see the product and see the trailer and see pretty much everything, right? So yeah, it wasn't an easy process, but it was part of that transitional journey, right? But I got really tired. It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of work. Because hitching, unhitching, taking it there and parking, filling it up with water, going to the commissary, and then, gray water and this and that. Oh
my gosh.
It's a lot. I was physically exhausted.
I can only imagine.
But the good thing is, like, when it was parked, then I could start my lab process. And it was like, again, creativity and building. And that was like my zen. That was the perfect time for me to just decompress. Yeah. So then I spoke to my husband. I said, I'm ready to station. And he's like, so have you thought about a place? And I said, not really. So I'm going to start my process of kind of driving around areas. And the first place that I thought was Fort Lauderdale. And one of my friends, she said, hey, I know that you're looking for, maybe a stationary, a permanent location to station the trailer. Because she works very close to the courthouse and there's a parking structure there. There's a number. Why don't you call the number and see if they have anything for you? I said, So I did. And I spoke to a representative. And, we spoke very briefly, but it was something where it was kind of rushed. And it's like, kind of like that.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, let's give it a shot. Let's give it an opportunity. Why not? So I said, what do you need from me? I need this, I need that. I'm like, okay, perfect. But a process that should have taken maybe a week.
Right.
Took months.
Oh my goodness.
Months. So it never happened. And the day that it was supposed to happen, where we finally agreed and nothing was signed, there was no contract, it was more of a verbal agreement. We were gonna get situated on May 18th, I remember clearly. Bought product, bought a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go. I was super excited. We had taken the trailer to park, and it was like, okay, we're ready, this is it.
Let's do this, yeah.
The Sunday that I confirmed, which was the next day, he said, no, it's not gonna work. We're not gonna do anything.
All that work, all that dedication, everything you poured into this, and then they say, it's not gonna work.
No. Yeah. But it was a learning lesson for me.
Totally.
Right. And it was the learning opportunity that I obtained from that was the words can be, very attractive, but the actions, really are the ones that are going to determine the outcome.
Right.
Don't trust 100% in the word, but more so in the action, of a person. So anyway, I'm like, all right, so now what do I do? I have all this product.
Yes.
So then I just started, my neighbors were so gracious too. They were like, we'll get coffee, we'll do this and we'll do that. And luckily I got a few private events during that time, which was great. So it wasn't a total waste of product. And I continued to just drive around, just drive. There was a church that I also went to that, that they were actually very optimistic, and there was a committee that were kind of like in agreement to having me there, but that didn't work out either. But I just didn't stop. I just kept on driving, and sometimes driving in circles.
But you were determined.
Yes, I was definitely determined.
Yeah.
There was never an ounce of doubt. And I think that was another driving force, never an ounce of doubt. And I remember driving one day and I was with my mom in the car and I said, you know what, Mom, I'm going to call that company. It was a real estate company. Yes. And the sign was there in an open lot. And I said, Mom, I'm going to call. And she's like, well, call. So I called, nobody answered. I left a voice message. And then I received a text message that it seemed like it was a prompt text, like from the recorded line. Yeah. But I still texted back and I took pictures of the trailer and I said, well, I'm looking for a property. I need this, and this. And maybe like a couple hours after, I received a text message saying, so where are you and what do you have? I had no idea who I was speaking to.
Right.
And again, I explained, I sent my bio, I did this. I was like very particular,
and structured.
Yes, here's the trailer. I'm looking for this dimensions. I need this. I need that. Da, da, da. Yeah, I don't have anything. So diligently since like May, June, every week. I just want to touch base with you. Just making sure there's every week. June came and my family, we received the news that my father-in-law had cancer. So there was a time, like a lull time, and my husband was traveling, and I said, listen, let me go and take care of your dad for a little bit, making sure that he's fine. I'll come back, then you go and you travel. I'll stay with the kids, and then, we kind of did like a swap, right?
Right.
And so that was like a little difficult, but I still had to keep on moving forward. And I would still text this person. So anyway, I came back, my husband left, and then he went over, and I told my husband, you know what, it's been so stressful. What do you think if I just go with the kids to Peru for the month of July, since they're on vacation? And he's like, go. I'll be with Dad, just go take the kids. And I took advantage at that time, and I'll explain a little bit, to do a little bit of coffee research as well while I was in Lima. Mm-hmm. So anyway, my last text was before leaving, to the person. And the person said, you know what? There may be something for you come August. So just text me then.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is great. But my mind was already like preoccupied with other things
right.
that I really it didn't sink. It was like, okay, that's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
So now we're in Lima and I'm doing my research, and a really good friend of mine from high school actually has a fantastic coffee shop. So we got together, and he's the type of person, very quiet, okay? But when you probe him on topics that he's very knowledgeable, he is an encyclopedia. So, boom, he provided me with so much, calmness and information that, I cannot obtain in a textbook. It's information from his level of expertise, from everything from his journey. So I took all of that like very close to me because I was explaining to him everything that I was going through.
Right.
So now we come back, right? A month has gone by,
Yep.
and I'm back, and I totally forgot. And then I'm scrolling through my text messages, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to text this person. So I texted the person behind, all the text messages and said, I just want to touch base again. And he said, when can you meet? I don't know. I was trying to figure things out, and I think I randomly said a day, and he's like, all right, I'll meet you at that such date at 8:30 in the morning. So I'm like, I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
I felt a little bit on edge, meeting a stranger I've never seen or spoken to.
Right.
Where am I going? I had no idea. I mean, I had no idea.
Did you have to give your husband the whereabouts?
Of course. Of course. So I arrive and I'm thinking, so I did the Google search on the address and it was the OB house, right? It was a breakfast place. I said, oh, okay, so we're going to have breakfast and we'll probably talk business. And
Right.
no, I was looking in, I arrived, I'm looking inside and there's nothing. And all of this didn't exist. It was just dirt.
Wow.
So like, where am I? What's going on? So I'm knocking on the door in the entrance and I'm like, nobody was answering. So I realized that the door was open. I opened the door and here comes this tall man. He's like, hello. I'm like, ah. So I introduced myself and he introduced himself and he's the owner of Emily's Garden. So we had a fantastic conversation and I showed him the trailer and this and that, but he wasn't the one that I was speaking to on the text message.
Oh.
It was another person.
Oh my gosh.
We meshed really well in conversation, in projection, in what I wanted to obtain, what he wanted to obtain from, this merging of, a lot of different elements within here, right? So we shook hands and we said, okay, let's move forward with this. Now in the interim, I figured out that the person that I was texting was the owner of the real estate company. So I finally got to meet him and he said, I'm the one that... I was like, oh my goodness. And I said, thank you so much for the opportunity. And he said to me, Bertha, you were so persistent. Yes. I don't think I've ever met anyone. I'm like, well, thank you. That is probably the best compliment that I could get. So, and then here we are, 7 months in, and it has been fantastic.
It's only been 7 months? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So we officially opened October. We had our family opening in September. Yeah. And then October was the official opening.
Here I am thinking that you guys have been here for years. I come in and I'm just like, wow, that's amazing.
It has been a fantastic journey. One that, you know what the beautiful thing is? That my kids are seeing it.
Yes.
And my kids are involved. And although, again, I struggle with time, they are here.
I remember coming one time and your son being here and helping you. Yes, taking the coffee orders.
Yes.
That's amazing.
That's my oldest son. Oh. He's so into this. He pulls a good shot of espresso, let me tell you. Oh, yeah.
Training them well.
Sorry. Yeah, so it's been a really good journey. Very, very nourishing. Intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, in all aspects.
It's so nice to see that there's a culmination, that it's come together full circle,
Yes.
So what is a typical day like for an entrepreneur like yourself?
Sometimes I wake up before the alarm. The alarm is normally at 5.
Wow.
Sometimes I wake up at 4:40. It's kind of like it's weird because like my body is already. Sometimes I see like 4:40, 4:44,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, maybe I'll snooze. No, let's get up. So as soon as I get up, it's more of just I take advantage for me. Just a little bit of me time. Whether it's prayer, whether it's meditation, whether it's just, all right, starting the day, what am I going to tackle first?
Yes.
In terms of the business. And there's every day there's creativity. Every day we have to push for something different, in terms of how can we promote ourselves, right? How can we grow? Because part of being stationed and I love doing pop-ups. I love that because, it gives an opportunity to meet people and gatherings and weddings, and I don't know, those things are so beautiful. That really, I love seeing that. But at the same time, I'm growing, customer base here. And that is so fantastic when I see people come. And, now that you're telling me that you've been here from pretty much the beginning, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. You know what I mean? And that is so enriching. That means that there's something good that I'm doing. And it's not just me, it's also like Veronica, the baristas that are also they're part of all of this. And I think Veronica, the other baristas that have been here as well, and they've transitioned because they have to grow as well, and they are either going to grad school or doing this. And I love the fact that I contributed, that the coffee contributed, that the environment contributed to something, greater for them. And they also provide, joy to the customers. They deliver the product, and it's a good product, and it's delicious. And then, of course, I can't not go about this without my roaster. He is like essential to this whole process, because if you don't have good coffee, then there you go.
And what is it a process to find a good roaster? Like, how many do you go through to really get something?
A lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. You go through several of them, and you kind of, the way I handled it was I liked trying the beans. And there was a company that I really enjoyed that it was all the way on the other coast, but that was very difficult because between the roasting time and the delivery, and it was just,
Totally.
You can't keep coffee for too long. It has a shelf life.
Yeah.
So that was complicated. And then, of course, looking at the roaster and making sure that, how are they roasting their coffee? Are they roasting it to a darker profile? I personally don't like too dark. I like the medium.
Right.
Medium, either light roast to medium, because you still have the benefits of the coffee.
Yes.
And you also have, just good flavors. It's not too bitter, or it's not. And then, of course, you have to learn how to pull a good shot of espresso. And that's where, a good barista will tell you, when you pull a good shot, you have good quality coffee, and you know how to pull a shot of espresso, you get perfection. You can have good quality coffee, but not know how to pull a shot of espresso, and you can get, complicated situation in your palate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Like, there's an art to it, for sure.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is your tagline. It's about serving coffee with purpose. What does that mean to you?
It's everything. And I remember while working on cold cases and, having to speak with families, the intention behind the work is everything. It wasn't, as soon as I would contact a family member, it was never like, by the way, the case is being opened, we'll figure it out. No, it was a relationship that was being developed with the person behind the line. Yeah. There were times that I would get people hang up the phone on me, and I would call again, and then people that would cry. It was very complicated. So you're dealing with human beings, You're dealing with a lot of heartache, a lot of pain. So now you're opening this pain again. Why? Why are you doing this? So when I committed to a case, it was a full commitment. And, I wasn't going to call someone just to call and say, hey, just we're working on your, sister's case, on your mother's case, or no. So the intention behind every process, every case that I handled, how I handled the case, how I handled the report, what was behind all of it. It is the intention. When there's good intention, everything just works. And that's what I do with everything in my life, whether it's work, whether it's if you come over my home and I'll make a cup of coffee for you, it will be with intention, with good, with love. If I make a cheese board for you, it will be like that.
And you can taste it. I feel like you taste the love when you sip on this coffee. I certainly do.
So then we're doing our job.
Yeah, you're doing your job.
Yes.
What about those days where it's a little bit tougher? What motivates you to get out of bed and to run this business? Are there days like that?
Well, you know what? It's such a commitment. Unless I had a really, really, like if my trainer really kicked my tush and my body's aching, then I'll be, give me 5 minutes. But other than that, no, I do it every morning. I do it every morning, and I'm thankful every morning. My husband can tell you, I'm a morning person, and I'm always happy in the morning. And
that's so good.
My husband, not so much. But I love my mornings, and it's never a chore to come here. What is difficult is and I think we briefly talked about it inside in the lab, where, when I don't know if we did, correct me if we did or we didn't, but when there's a rush of people,
yes,
you have to keep calm. You can only do one thing at a time, and it's so true. If you rush and if you get desperate and if you become angry, the result is not going to be something positive. It never results in anything positive. Yeah. So with the baristas that I've hired, and when I do my interviews, it's how do you handle stressful situations is the key. And what if a customer comes in and is so rude to you? What do you do? Yeah. And I tell, and there's a little pause, because it's this is one of those questions. It's well, I don't know. I'm sure that they're thinking I don't know. Well, there's more to that, obviously. It's not just putting a smile on the face, but it's also thinking about, you didn't do anything to the person, so it's not on you.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with what happened in their life. Maybe an hour ago, maybe a minute ago. So just keep in mind that people are going to come and something may have happened in their life that you have no idea. It could be something super tragic. It could be, they're stressed about something. It could be that, I don't know, anything. It could be anything. So never take things personally. Unless you really do something to the customer, then of course they have the right. Just don't do that. But, for the most part, and I tell them, you are in an industry, and this is so new to me, because again, this is a completely different endeavor than what I have done through almost 20 years of my life. So it's what do I see when I go to a restaurant or a coffee shop? I've had good experiences. I've had bad experiences. I've had, at a coffee shop, a person say to me, what's up? My son was next to me and he was looking at me saying, oh my gosh, grabbing my hand and squeezing it. Mom, don't react, pretty much. But no, it's you're dealing with customer service. So there's something very unique in each personality that, you're in the industry for a reason. So I realized that I am of service. I've always been of service.
Yeah.
So it's, I love that. I love making sure that you and your family are happy. When you see somebody that is pleased, that even if they're not, you can come up and do something that will, help with their day.
Yes.
And it's kind of like that.
Paying it forward in a way.
Yes. And then, from maybe they were super miserable that day, and then next thing you know, you did something so positive for that person, and that person now is like, oh, you know what? Yeah, let me pass it on to somebody else as well. So that ripple effect. Yeah.
I guess I want to end on asking you what piece of advice you'd give to someone who's striving to follow their passion and to start a small business. For example, I know I crave the idea. My friend and I, we talked about it ages ago, but we think about it from time to time. Opening up a coffee shop in Hawaii, like what would that look like?
Amazing.
Right?
Count me in. I will
Yes.
fly.
100%. You're there.
Please. First and foremost, be scared. Because without that, it's like, how can I explain it? I had been in moments of doubt, in moments of fear, in moments of uncertainty, because all of it is uncertain. You don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen in a month, but I know that with the fire that is in me, that I can consistently keep this going because I love it.
Yes.
You're going to be tired for sure, but learn. I think the best thing I can tell you is learn the market, especially in Hawaii. Hawaii is complicated, and I'm not trying to deviate you from that.
I bet it would be. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's beautiful. I've been to Hawaii. It's magical.
On my list.
Yes.
Need to go there.
Fantastic. Study the market. What is it that is going to make you stand out? Is it something about your service? Is it something about your product? How much do you guys have to invest? You don't need to invest too much, because if you want to start something, I knew I couldn't open up a brick and mortar immediately. Right. So part of the strategy and thought process was, okay, what can I do where I'm not going to because now I'm retired, right? And the only person that's bringing in the money is my husband. So what can I do to not put so much of a burden in the financial situation, right?
Right.
But can be along the lines of, all right, we have this, let's invest and let's grow, right? And that's kind of how we strategize, and that has worked, at least for us.
Yes.
Right. The cliche part is like, seriously, if this is something that is a burning desire, you don't give up. It doesn't matter the obstacles that come your way. The obstacles are fantastic because that is going to allow you to peel, the layers and say, okay, no, yes, no. This challenge brought these lessons for me, as a potential business owner, a potential, coffee shop owner. And these lessons I'm taking as something positive where I can grow as a businesswoman.
Yes.
Every single day is a learning opportunity. Customers teach me every day, right? About profiles, about things, about moments, about experiences, about maybe not doing this and getting their feedback. The good, the bad, the ugly. I always say all of it matters. All of it matters. And again, it has nothing to do with you as a person. It has to do with their palate profile and what they don't like and what they think should change. So take all of those elements into consideration and really listen to your customers. Always listen to the customers. Not to say that they're always right, because I'm sometimes wrong. But no, but yeah, seriously, in all honesty, it's that, listen to your customers, listen to your gut as well. Your instinct is huge through this process.
Well, Bertha, thank you so much for just taking the time to be with us here today.
Oh, this has been my pleasure. Thank you.
Truly
Thank you for wanting to
appreciate
do this with me.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Bertha's story is a powerful reminder that it's never too late to pivot, pursue what lights you up, and create something meaningful from the ground up. Whether it's solving mysteries through science or serving joy through coffee, passion finds a way, especially when you lead with purpose. If today's episode inspired you, take the first step towards your own passion project. You never know where it might lead. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next time on Passion Projects. Until then, take care.